Welcome to this segment of FAFSA Stress Free. I am here from the Indiana Latino Institute and I am joined by Rachel McHenry from Invested. We are here to talk to you a little bit about the FAFSA process and help answer any last minute questions. Once again, my name is Brenda Gutierrez and we have Rachel McHenry if you want to share a little bit about Invested.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to get to partner with Indiana Latino Institute. Invested is an Indiana-based nonprofit organization, and we provide free help with really all types of planning for post-secondary education, applying for all types of financial aid, the FAFSA, and then just comparing those financial aid offers at the end of the FAFSA. All of our help is completely free, and we do offer help in English and Spanish.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get into what is the FAFSA.
Yeah, so we've got a little bit of overview, and then I'm going to share some slides about just some of the trickier things that we've noticed that students and families may stumble upon with FAFSA, and then kind of some steps to take after you have filed the FAFSA.
Perfect.
Alrighty, so the FAFSA is currently open in the state of Indiana, opened October 1st. The priority deadline is April 15th, so that is coming up soon. That's why I want to point that out first. If you want to be considered for any type of state grants, 21st Century Scholarship, you do need to have the FAFSA completed by April 15th, okay? The FAFSA year that you're going to file for seniors this year is going to be, or for everybody, is the 26-27 year. But for seniors, you're thinking about the year that you're going to be going to school. But then the tax information that it's going to ask you for is the 2024 tax data. So it's always asking you 2 years prior. Now, the FAFSA does have some options where it might be able to pull your tax information automatically, but it is a good idea just to kind of know where that information is in case you need to access it.
Is there a possibility that they might have to input it manually?
Yes, yes, especially in the case of parents. If parents have various citizenship statuses, they may have to enter taxes manually, and we're always happy to help you go through that process to kind of go line by line through that.
Perfect.
Yeah. So when it comes to actually filing the FAFSA form, it is an online form that you're going to complete at studentaid.gov. And it determines eligibility for all types of federal funds. So federal grants, which are free money given to you for education, like the Pell Grant and the SEOG grant. It's also used for the Federal Work Study Program, where you would work like on your college campus, and then the government actually pays money towards your tuition. It's also utilized for any sort of federal student loans that you would borrow. Now, you don't have to borrow loans. I know some families think the FAFSA is only the application for loans, and it's for all types of federal and state aid. So just because you file the FAFSA does not mean that you have to borrow loans, but it just means it will show up as a potential option for you. FAFSA is also utilized, again, by the state of Indiana. So for any Indiana grants, especially if you're considering going to a college or university in Indiana, you want to make sure that you hit that April 15th deadline. Again, I mentioned 21st Century Scholars, Franco Bannon. There's a couple of different funds that can help you. And then many colleges and universities also require that you complete a FAFSA, even for them to offer you like scholarships and different things. So it is kind of an important piece of that puzzle as you are looking at how to fund your post-secondary education. So the first step is creating a user account. So the student has to create their own user account for studentaid.gov, and then the parent or contributors have to create their own account as well. Usually at least one parent has to create an account. There are some cases where both parents need to. We'll get into that a little bit later. Now, when it comes to eligibility with the FAFSA, the student must either be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. So that would include things like if they have like a form I-94, if they have a green card, various T visas, things like that. So the student has to have that eligibility status. However, the parents do not. So there is no requirement on the parents because this is considered the student's form. Okay, it's their information. Now, it's also really important. Sorry, the lights are turning off. It's
Okay.
also really important that the student and the parent each use their own phone number, their own email, all their own information when you create these accounts, because again, they're unique, they're tied to each of you, and the FAFSA is going to request that you do two-step verification with codes like most accounts that you would
Mhm.
create now. So you want to make sure you're using your own information for FAFSA.
And is this an account that they have to keep for all 4 years that they're in college, or are they able to create new accounts later
So,
on?
yeah, you cannot create a new account once you make this. This is the account you're going to need to access every single year after. So it's also important for students, especially if you're coming from high school to college, to utilize a personal email address, because a lot of times if you use that high school email address, it gets shut off when you graduate. You do need to have access to this account every single year. Yeah, good
Perfect.
questions. All right, so I have just some example slides, kind of what FAFSA looks like when you get started. We recommend starting as the student. It just seems to flow a little bit easier. So you'll create that account, and then the student will log in and select their role that they're the parent or they're the student, and then continue on. There's a few onboarding slides, which is FAFSA information. And then one of the very first things it's going to have you do is confirm your identity information and then provide consent. So this consent is actually saying that you are allowing the FAFSA to access any data that the IRS has from you. You have to say yes that you approve this consent, even if you don't file taxes, even if you didn't work. So I have students all the time who say, I don't work, or I work really part-time. I don't have to file a tax return. That's okay. You still have to say yes that you approve this consent in order to be eligible for financial aid. And if the FAFSA doesn't pull anything from the IRS, then it just moves on. The same thing applies for parents, whether they have worked or not. So it will still require that you say that you approve this in order to be considered for any types of financial aid. And again, if it does pull things, then great. That saves you a little bit of time. If it doesn't, you may still see some financial questions. You can certainly answer those manually if you need to. Okay. Then it's going to ask the student some questions about their personal circumstances. So it'll ask if they're married, their college plans, so like what degree they're going into. And then there's some dependency determination questions. So these are all used to determine if the student can file the FAFSA independently without parents. Now, typically when students are going from high school to college, they are still required to provide parent info, but there are some exceptions to the rule. Like if the student was born before January 1st, 2003, if they are a graduate or professional student, if the student is married, or if they're at risk of being homeless. In all of these situations, they are considered independent, which means they can file a FAFSA on their own without any parent or legal guardian information. Now, there are some other situations where the student is also allowed to file independently, and those are kind of in that screenshot there. So it's going to ask them if they are currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces, if they're a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, again, if they have any of their own children that they support, if any time since turning 13, the student was an orphan, a ward of the court, they were in foster care. It'll also ask if they're legally emancipated or if somebody other than the parent or step parent is their legal guardian. Okay. In all of these cases, the student is also allowed to file the FAFSA as an independent student, and it will just skip right over all of those parent questions. If you do have questions about this, please reach out and let us know. We are happy to kind of walk through that process and give you some guidance if you think you may qualify as an independent student. And we can just talk through that with you, because I know some of these are difficult situations. So then with the student's information, it will have a few more questions for you, some demographic information. It'll ask a little bit about your parents as well. If you know that information, you can provide that. And if you don't, that is okay. And then it will ask you about taxes here. Again, if the student filed taxes and imported that data from the IRS, you may not see questions here that you have to answer. It will all be filled out already. If the student did file and they have to enter manually, there are a few cases where that happens. We can kind of guide you through that. Or if you didn't file, you can just say no and it will move on. The FAFSA is an adaptive form, so you're only going to see the questions that you need to answer. Okay. And then one of the last pieces where the student is actually answering questions about themselves is the college or school selection. So this is where you're going to put the names of the colleges and universities that you are interested in attending. And I say any that you're considering. You do not have to have applied, you do not have to have been accepted, but any that you are thinking about that you want to receive your FAFSAs to see what financial aid you can receive from them, you want to include on here. So you can list up to 20 schools the first time you submit the FAFSA. But then if you want to add additional ones, or maybe there's one you didn't add the first time, but you're considering it later on, you can actually go in really easily and just add that school without having to go back through the entire FAFSA form. And I always recommend you add at least one college or university from Indiana, just so you can see if you're eligible for any Indiana financial aid. Every year we get students who say, they are guaranteed they're going out of state, which was me when I was going into college. I grew up in another state and was like, I for sure am going out of state. However, sometimes it's just helpful to see what funds and what resources are out there to help kind of make your college education possible. And so it may be the difference that, oh, you get an Indiana grant and that can really help you continue your education further. So always just something to think about and leave your options open with this.
So on here, you can include any school from like the US on that
Yes.
list. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. And then the last step is if you are a dependent student, meaning you are required to provide parent information on the FAFSA, it will have you invite your parent as a contributor to your FAFSA form. So this is what connects those student and parent accounts. You've made them separately, but this is what connects them into that one FAFSA form, is you sending this invitation. All you need is their email, and it will send them an email with information to then go forth and complete their section. And we'll talk about their section in detail as well. All right. So another kind of tricky piece on the FAFSA is, again, we said it needs parent information in a lot of cases, but sometimes it can be hard to determine whose information it really needs. So you always want to start with your biological or your adoptive parents. And if your parents are married or unmarried, but they live together in the same household, both parents' information is required on the FAFSA. Now, if your parents filed taxes jointly, so together, then only one parent needs to create a parent account, and it will pull both of their information from that one parent account. So if they file taxes jointly, just one. If they are married and they file taxes separately, then it will ask each of them to create an account and each of them to go through and do parent questions. So it can't pull those together if they file them separately. Okay, so that is the case where they each need to complete an FSA ID. Now, if your parents are divorced or separated, or maybe they, were never married and they're not living together, then you need to figure out who provided more financial support for you in the last 12 months. And that will be the parent on the FAFSA. This sometimes comes down to things like insurance, like phone bills, like who pays for your weekly groceries, things like that. But you kind of need to determine who provided more for you. If it really is a 50-50 split, we have plenty of families to say, yeah, it's truly equal between the two. Then you need to figure out which parent has had the greater income and assets in the last 12 months, and that will be the parent on the FAFSA form. Again, if you have questions about this, let us know, because everybody's family is unique and different. Continuing on kind of with that same track, if in the case of parents who are divorced, separated, or unmarried and not living together, if a parent gets remarried, then that parent and your step parent would be on the FAFSA. So for example, let's say we've determined that mom provided more financial support in the last 12 months and mom is remarried. Then the FAFSA is actually going to ask questions about your biological mom and her new spouse. So it will not ask any questions about biological father at all. Okay, so it'll kind of think of this in terms of the household. But again, let us know if you have questions or need to kind of walk through that path too. If the parent is widowed and they're not remarried, then it's going to be just them on the FAFSA. And if they are remarried, it's going to work similarly to that remarried divorced parent. All right, so then this is what the email looks like that the parent receives. So they'll get a notice that they, have this invitation. It'll also have a code in that email, and that code is what they're going to need to connect their information to your FAFSA. So they're going to log in at studentaid.gov, but instead of just saying I'm creating a new form, they're going to say they're the parent and that they have an invitation to accept, and it will ask for this code. And when they type that in, it connects them to the student's FAFSA and will show them parent-specific questions. Okay, so some of these questions look very similar to the student questions. You'll notice we talked about the confirmation of identity information and consent. So again, the parents, whether they have filed taxes or not, must provide consent for the FAFSA to access their IRS data. Again, if there's nothing to access, it won't pull anything, and you just may see some more questions that you have to answer manually, okay? The FAFSA is also going to ask about your tax filing status. So like we mentioned just a moment ago, that's going to be used to determine if one or two parents need to create accounts on the FAFSA to answer questions. And then it's also going to ask about the family size and then the number in college. And it's going to automatically pull whatever was on your 2024 taxes. So you just want to double check that and make sure that that is accurate information. You can edit that very easily if it is different. All right. And then as part of the financial questions, it's also going to ask about assets, okay? So things that you do not report in this section would be the home that you currently live in, any retirement plans, or any businesses with less than 100 full-time equivalent employees. These things do not have to be included in your assets. But things that you do include, and for assets, it's the value as of today, are any cash savings or checking that you have as of today, any real estate that you have, stocks, bonds, or 529 investments. And with the 529s, it's going to be just for the student whose FAFSA you're filing. So if you have 3 children, you have 3 529s, you're only reporting the one on here. And then you'll also report any child support that you receive. So these numbers are as of today, your estimates as of today, versus the taxes being prior years. Okay. The other piece at the end of the parent section, again, if they are married and they filed a joint return, they'll see this part where they have to include their spouse's information, and it's just demographic information. It's just to connect those two and saying they're both on the taxes, okay? If you file taxes separately, then instead here, you will see the opportunity for the parent to then invite the other parent to complete their section after that. So it kind of goes in order that you would have the student and then one parent. And then if they need another parent, the FAFSA will tell you that as well, and you'll send that invitation.
So, Rachel, really, as long as you're filling out your information correctly, it will prompt you to what it needs from you, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it should prompt you along. Like I said, it's a smart form, so you will only see the questions that it needs you to answer.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So then this is the review page. So the student reviews and signs to submit their form, and then each of the parents or contributors will review and sign and submit their form. This is just like an electronic signature that will send the FAFSA off to be processed. And then during that processing stage, they're also going to send your FAFSA information to the colleges and universities that you put on your FAFSA. This typically takes 1 to 3 days, but you can always log back in to see what your FAFSA status is. So this is kind of what that looks like. You'll see when you log in, there's a My Activity page, and you'll be able to see the various FAFSA application statuses. So if your FAFSA says that it is processed and you have that green check mark, that means it's done, it's been sent to the colleges. There are no actions needed on your part. You are done. Okay. If it says in progress, that probably means you started it, but you haven't submitted it yet. So this is really important piece. If you think that you've done it, but you're not sure and you see in progress, you may even just need to provide a signature at the end, but it means it's not submitted. If it says it's in review, this means it is submitted, but it's still kind of in that processing phase. They're still reviewing all of the information that you put in there. And then if it says action needed, that just means you need to go back in and review the answers and they just need you to do a correction. Again, this isn't something where you have to panic. If you did something wrong, it's okay. You can always go in and make corrections. I always say, you take a breath. It doesn't, it's not gonna for sure say you can't get financial aid, but it just means you need to go back in and review and make a correction. Again, we're always happy to help you do that, happy to help kind of review and see what might have gotten missed or answered incorrectly. And so you'll have kind of that status tracker where you can follow your FAFSA from once you start it to when maybe the student submits it to then the parent and so forth. So you can see how you've progressed until it is completely done.
Will they receive an email letting them know that it has
This
finished processing, or do
the
they have to go
student
in?
should, yeah, the
Oh,
student should also receive an email letting them know their FAFSA is processed. You'll also receive an email if you get that action needed too.
okay.
All right. So after you have filed your FAFSA, the FAFSA does create an output called the FAFSA Submission Summary, the FSS. And so you can log in to your account to view this information. Some of it may also get emailed to you. But it's going to have information like your student aid index number. This is not a dollar amount that you're paying, but this is like a calculation made from the FAFSA that's used to determine eligibility for certain types of federal and state aid. There are also some scholarships out there that request your student aid index number. So you can pull it right from your FAFSA and provide it. It's that kind of need-based calculation determines those income-based scholarships and grants. Okay. This page will also show you if you're eligible for any federal Pell Grant. It'll show you if you're eligible for any federal student loans. And then it may have a note about work study, but you won't see any amounts on that until you receive actual financial aid offers from the colleges and the universities. So this is really just a snapshot of federal aid eligibility. All of the other types of financial aid that you may receive, like state grants or individual scholarships, those are going to be on your actual financial aid offer from the individual colleges and universities. So you won't hear from FAFSA about those things, just these couple of like snapshots with federal aid.
With the federal aid, are the universities required to give that amount? For example, with the Pell Grant on this example says 4,556. That is for sure what they're going to receive, or could it be a little bit different in their school aid?
So it should be the same at every college and university. Federal aid will be the same across the board. Yeah.
Okay.
So you are entitled to receive that. Yeah. Now, another step that can happen after you file the FAFSA is sometimes you're selected for a process called verification. You may see a comment on that federal or that FAFSA submission summary that says this. Verification just means it's a review process of FAFSA data. Sometimes the individual college or university may request to verify your information. Maybe if you filled out taxes manually, they may need like a paper copy of your taxes just to verify your information. Other times you could be selected for verification and it's just a random selection of FAFSA kind of verifying information that they're taking in. So if you get selected, this does not mean that you did anything wrong. It just means you're the lucky winner who is helping kind of the review process. So again, some common things that we see that get selected for verification, taxes are a big one. And in those cases, the college or university will let you know what they need, but typically they just want like a paper or a digital copy of your tax return. They may also ask you about your family size or if you have any of untaxed income. So again, in all of these situations, regardless of if you get selected by the college or if the federal government just picks you for their review algorithm, you will work with the individual college or university that you are looking to attend. They will tell you exactly what information they need from you and exactly how to submit it to them. Okay. Now, a big piece of FAFSA is that because you are using tax data from 2 years prior, so again, for the 26-27 FAFSA, you're using 2024 tax data. There are sometimes changes to your family's financial situation that are not accurately represented on the FAFSA. So you'll still want to go ahead and file the FAFSA as is, but, there may be things like a change in employment or income status that happened to your family. There may be medical expenses that were not covered by insurance. Maybe you have a change in your parents' marital status or unusual dependent care expenses. If you feel like you have a special circumstance where, again, something happened that's kind of outside of your control that has changed your family's finances, then you can actually talk to the college or university's financial aid office and let them know what's going on. And they will use a process called professional judgment to determine if they're willing to amend your financial aid offer. So they're not required to do anything. I can't guarantee that they will do anything, but I highly encourage you to communicate with them and communicate as early as you can, because they may have some options where they can actually offer you some additional financial aid. Okay. And we talked about this a little bit, but students will then receive a financial aid offer from all of those colleges and universities that they included on their FAFSA. Now, some colleges may wait until you apply and have been accepted. So you do want to communicate with those individual colleges about their process. You also want to communicate with them about their timelines because they are all different for every college. But once you file the FAFSA, you will receive this financial aid offer from the individual colleges. That includes the cost of attendance for that college or university for 1 calendar year. It will show you all different types of financial aid that you're eligible for. So it will show those federal and state grants. It will show scholarships from that particular college or university, and then any work study or student loan options. And then it will always show you different things to pay whatever is left. So a lot of times we're seeing they may mail you something, but they may also just give you a link to log into like an online portal. So just be communicating with the college or university about how you're going to receive this and kind of the form of that as well. So another thing that is helpful is at InvestEd, I mentioned we're always happy to help you review those financial aid offers. So if you're just trying to understand kind of cost and then what financial aid you're actually receiving and then maybe what that bottom line looks like, we're always happy to help you review all of those offers just so you can understand the different opportunities that you're receiving at all the different colleges and universities. But we also have created this award advisor tool. So it is a free tool that you can utilize to help you understand and compare your financial aid offers. And it's on our website, investedindiana.org/award advisor. So it'll be right there on your phone that you can just kind of see and compare all of that data side by side really easily.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that you guys had that, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a newer thing. So. And then we also have some other types of financial aid that can help you. So let's say you get that financial aid offer back and you have a balance still that you need to cover. That's great to start looking into those outside scholarships, those community foundation scholarships. I know ILI has some scholarships. And then we also have a $1,000 scholarship giveaway as well. We give away 5 of these every year. So this is just a good resource to help you. And then we have some scholarship search tools on our website too that you can utilize to help. All right, so I mentioned a few of our free resources, but again, everything that we do to assist you is free. So if you go to our website, investedindiana.org, we have a lot of just unique tools. We have the link to Award Advisor, we have scholarship tips, we have our scholarship, we have some more information about FAFSA, so you can kind of do some deeper dives to just find some more information to help you in this process. And then if you do have more questions, this is the best way to connect with us. So you can give us a call. It will go to our whole team and we will connect with you and help you. We can do FAFSAs over the phone. We can help you with any questions you have, again, in English or Spanish, or you can also email us and we would be happy to answer your questions that way as well. You can follow us on social media and we post about different FAFSA and scholarship tips and things that we're hearing to kind of help you as well. And then we do have a mailing list that you can join to receive kind of monthly information about financial aid, about FAFSA, and making sure you're staying up to date on all of that. But Otherwise, that's all the information that I have. So thank you so much for having me and letting me share. And we are always happy to help if you have questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was really useful for me too, just even to get that review and that refresher. So we appreciate you. I do want to mention, as well as Invested, ILI does also offer some free FAFSA support, both in English and in Spanish in the office or via Zoom. So you guys are welcome to scan that QR code and register with that. And then here are some other institutions. Goshen College is a really great partner that we work with, both English and Spanish, ILI, Invested, and then also the Commission for Higher Education. All of those are really great resources. If you guys have any questions, we would love to help support you. But that is all that we have for today. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either myself or reach out to Rachel and Invested and see if we can help you out. So once again, that priority deadline is April 15th. So please try to fill it out before then. But that's all we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.